Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's great to see so many people here, in spite of the rain, who are interested in parent advocates in the child welfare system. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank several people who made today's event and forum possible. Commissioner Mattingly, Commissioner Carrion, Jim Purcell from Kafka, Anita Gundana and Amy Darden from the Fund for Social Change, Dana Guyett from ACS, Mike Arshem from the Child Welfare Organizing Project, the other members of the Parent Advocate Steering Committee, Peter Carey and his team who created the brochures with the parent advocates that you have and the posters that you see, and of course Andrew White and the New School for hosting today's event. I want to talk about the Parent Advocate Initiative and about New York's achievements using parent advocates, but I also want to talk about the vulnerability of parent advocates in the child welfare system today. The Parent Advocate Initiative was created in the fall of 2008, shortly after a forum like this, to encourage child welfare agencies to increase their hiring of parent advocates who have had child welfare experience. It was Commissioner Mattingly's idea to organize that forum, and I want to thank him for getting the ball rolling. The Parent Advocate Initiative was a collaboration of OCFS in state government, ACS in city government, Kafka representing the voluntary agencies, CWOP, and several foundations. New Yorkers for Children and the Warner Fund attended steering committee meetings, and the Child Welfare Fund, Annie E. Casey Foundation, Marguerite Casey Foundation, and J.P. Morgan DeCamp supported the initiative. Their activities were coordinated by the Fund for Social Change. Having all these branches of the child welfare system at the table made it possible to accomplish a great deal. In fact, the steering committee was the catalyst for changes in state regulations to enable foster care agencies to receive evaluation credit for parent advocate contact with families. The goal of the initiative was to have more parents with child welfare experience involved in all phases of the system, to work in foster care agencies helping families negotiate reunification, to help change the culture of agencies to be more aware of the needs and wishes of families, and for parents to be in a position to advocate for change in programs and policies that will better meet the needs of struggling families. The Parent Advocate Initiative funded 6 foster care agencies to hire 8 parent advocates with child welfare experience who would work to help other families who are struggling to be reunited with their children. The agencies agreed to pay part of the parent advocate's salary and to cover the full cost of their salary once the initiative was over. They've all done that and much more. The agencies are Children's Aid Society, Episcopal Social Services, Forestdale, Lutheran Social Services, New Alternatives for Children, and New York Foundling. One other activity of the Parent Advocate Initiative was to create the Parent Advocate Network, which provides peer support and training for parent advocates, and we hope will be a force to have the voice of parents influence programs and policies. Over 150 parents are part of the network. If you are a parent advocate and would like to join the network, I encourage you to talk to their representatives who are here today. Before 1994, there were virtually no parents employed anywhere in the child welfare system in the United States. 5 years ago, there were roughly 25 parents working in 15 child welfare agencies in New York City. We estimate that there are now almost 50 parent advocates working in child welfare agencies and at least another 50 working in other parts of the child welfare system. These 100 parent advocates are currently working in 22 foster care agencies. SCO is the lead with at least 8 parent advocates in their agency. Parent advocates are in law firms representing parents in family court, in the START program in ACS's Bronx field office, which helps substance-abusing mothers with infants, and they are working in advocacy organizations. Things are moving in the right direction, but they are moving slowly. Parent advocates are working throughout the country both to encourage families and to advocate for improving the care provided to children and families. Just as the Child Welfare Fund has been and is promoting parent advocates in New York City, the Anna E. Casey Foundation and Casey Family Programs have promoted the use of parent advocates in other parts of the country to engage and support families in Kentucky, Michigan, Washington State, Iowa, California, and elsewhere. Several hundred parents are now employed in child welfare agencies in these other states. In addition, parent advocacy organizations have sprung up in other parts of the country. Groups like DHS Give Us Back Our Children in Philadelphia, and SPAN and Parents Anonymous in New Jersey are 2 nearby examples. But New York is way ahead of everyone else. According to Lisa Payne Wells, who is the point person for parent engagement at the Anna E. Casey Foundation, she said, quote, "New York is on a different planet. It's what everyone else aspires to." Parents have been working as advocates in other systems such as education, mental health, and developmental disabilities with very positive results. Child welfare is finally catching up. The evaluation of parent advocates in child welfare have also been positive. We've distributed the very encouraging evaluation by Chapin Hall of the parent advocates who were trained by CWOP and were placed in foster care agencies in New York. In spite of all this progress, we have a long way to go. Parents are working in only a very small percentage of families that could benefit from the involvement of parent advocates. Parents have only a small and infrequent voice at policy tables, and when they are at the table, they often feel that the decisions are being made at a different table. There are more parent advocates who have been trained and are not working as parent advocates and want to be than there are parent advocates who are currently working in foster care agencies. And there is no designated funding stream for parent advocates, so agencies have to cobble together ways to pay for them to be employed. Every executive director, supervisor, or caseworker I've spoken with who has worked with a parent advocate or employed them emphasizes that parent advocates have improved case practice. We have to decide, are we going to let parent advocates be another boutique program that remains on the margins of case practice or even disappears, as so many other exemplary programs have for lack of funding? Or will each of us do all that we can to have parent advocates improve case practice throughout the child welfare system? In spite of the difficulties and the horrific times for families and those of us who are trying to help them, this is a really good news story. There's been an increase in parent advocates hired in agencies. All reports are that parent advocates improve case practice. There's now a network to support parent advocates. And we have the inspiring stories of how parent advocates have changed and are now helping others. That is what we will hear about today. It's my pleasure to introduce Andrew White, Director of the Center for New York City Affairs and the New School, and I hope this will be a fabulous event for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And we are right on schedule. As David said, I run the Center for New York City Affairs, which is an applied policy research center at the Graduate School of Management and Urban Policy here at the New School. and among other things, we publish Child Welfare Watch. My role today is really as traffic cop because there's so much we want to cover and so little time to do it. First off, I just wanted to ask, how many of you are personally familiar with the work of a parent advocate? If you raise your hand, please. All right, so it's a lot of you. This is great. You wouldn't have found that even just 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think. Obviously, a big part of this is not only to hear from your experiences, but to also educate those in the room and those watching right now as we stream this on the web, sort of how to do this and how to do it right. So here's the deal. We're going to hear from Commissioners Mattingly and Carrion, and also from Jim Purcell of Kafka, and then we have 3 panels, each with short discussions and then time to hear from you in the audience. The goal is to generate a thoughtful discussion and give you information you can use in implementing your own parent advocate program or advancing what you've got. That really what this is about is implementation of a great idea. I want to give just a little bit of background before I introduce Commissioner Mattingly. Over the last decade, I've been lucky enough to interview dozens of parent advocates and observe their work in places as different as Los Angeles and Louisville and Des Moines and here in New York. And it's almost always, in fact, it is always inspiring to hear people talk about, people who have found their way through the systems themselves, talk about how to apply their skills and their knowledge to help other people. But one of the really interesting aspects of that work is also the memorable interviews with the caseworkers and supervisors who work with them, who work with parents, who are now their colleagues rather than their, quote, clients. And, they're often very candid about the difficulties they've had getting their heads around working with people that they used to see as their clients, who now alongside them. And those people have given me very concrete descriptions of the change in values that they experienced as they went through this work. To watch a parent advocate do the job of helping, when you see a really good parent advocate at work doing the job, helping somebody figure out how to get their lives in a place where they can bring their child home, it can be a changing, personally changing experience. And dealing with systems as crazy as family courts, which are no fun anywhere in the country. In that sense, implementation is as much about culture change as it is about culture change and change in organizations as it is about personal change. So there's also that other side, which is that the parents themselves go through a bit of a culture change, I think, when they do this work. And we're going to hear about both of those sides of this today and what the systems and structures are in place to make that work. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to try and keep this all on schedule, so forgive me if I interrupt people, but there will certainly be time to ask questions and make comments from the audience. So keep that in mind as you're listening. We're going to start with Commissioner John Mattingly of the Administration for Children's Services. Commissioner Mattingly has been the most consistent leadership, I think, in child welfare in New York City probably since such an agency existed. If you think about, he's now been there at the helm of ACS for 6.5 years. Commissioner Mattingly.
Good morning, everybody. I won't take up too much time. Hi, Gladys. I didn't see you over there. It is great to be here with this group this morning. I'd like to take 1 minute to ask all the parent advocates to raise their hand so I can make sure I see you all. Fabulous. Fabulous. Great. Thank you. All of the ACS staff? Not too many.
They're working.
Oh, that's right. They're working. Damn. All the legal advocates here? Good. All the private agency representatives? It's fabulous. Yes. What am I missing? Birth parents who are not parent advocates. All right. A lot of birth parents in here. You won't own up to it. My kids are in their 30s now, so I can own up to it. They're removed from me enough that nobody will actually put their behavior next to me. So that's when you know you got adult children. I want to recognize three people here today. First, it's great to have Mike Arsham back among us. I don't know what we would do without CWAP. We could do without Mike, but I don't know what we'd do without CWAP. Also now, a little bit about Andrew White. The consistency of your focus on our work, objective, outside of any of the actors in the system, has been remarkable, and I've never seen anything quite like it anywhere in the country. So thank you, Andrew. There's also one fellow here who's so much always in the leadership and standing up at a dais like this, who doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, and that's David Tobis. David has been the principled advocate and supporter and funder of the work of not only parent advocates, but of much of our work in this business. Neighborhood-based services, where would we be without him? So it's really great to say this to you. I've never had the chance yet, but you are appreciated. If you will look in your agenda for something else completely superfluous, I'm here as Commissioner John D. Mattingly. Not true. It's John B. Mattingly. Now, what do you think the B stands for? Who doesn't know me? You don't, I'll get out of here. Now, I grew up in the 50s. That's how old I am, right? And because of a saint whose intercession was sought right after I was born because I had a clubfoot and other things, because his intercession was sought, I got named John Bosco Mattingly. Now, I want you to think about what it was like in elementary school with that name. You want to know what's wrong with me? That's where it comes from. Briefly, it's really great to be here with everybody. We do have, and I want to remind everyone, we do have a long ways to go, certainly in the child welfare system, but also in building this enterprise that has been so important here in New York City and should be so important all around the country, called parent advocacy. Everywhere you look in this city where we are doing some of our best work, whether it's in child safety conferences, whether it's in family conferences, appearances in court, everywhere you look where the best is happening, you'll find parent advocates hanging around. And that's what will continue, as you continue to grow, will help us continue to get better. It is a very difficult time for all of us in this business for a bunch of reasons, but certainly because of the fiscal crises that we've been in this country for some time. There are examples that I could give, but that's whining, and after a while, nobody wants to hear a commissioner whine, right, Gladys? For the first time in the history of New York, and only the second time I'm aware of in the country, we have gotten a huge cut in adoption subsidy. How can you take a cut in adoption subsidy? Don't blame Gladys. That kind of wholesale elimination of so many programs, efforts, and people working on behalf of poor and disadvantaged communities and people is happening all across the country. You see it now in the wave of right-wing reaction in the Congress that threatens to devastate Head Start. Adoption subsidy, Head Start. Where does this end? Now, I do have a little bit of good news. You cannot hold it. You can't hold me to it. But it is good news, and I think it's firm. We are going to be able to restore the cuts that we made just in January to homemaking. That's a big deal. It doesn't affect a lot of people sometimes, but it's a big deal. We are still struggling and need everybody here's help. And I won't tell you how, because that would be inappropriate. We need your help to baseline the preventive increases that we have been using from City Hall for the past several years. They've never been baselined. This is a tough time, but this is the time we have to do it. There's just no doubt. We have to baseline preventive. Now, there's special challenges this time, but I won't get into them at this point. It's sort of inside baseball. But please help this city restore and maintain the preventive services budget. We got advocates over here too, I see. Yes, all right. I do want to mention one program that we started actually in Ohio, and we are just in the infancy of here, but already have some really good results. That doesn't get too much attention. It's very small. It's in the Bronx now. And that's our START program. That's our special effort to work more successfully with oftentimes parents who just had a baby with a positive toxicology. The program is designed after the immediate investigation to have a parent mentor or parent advocate work alongside of a child protective worker in the family services unit. We have found around the country, well, let's be clear, it's Ohio in here. I'll own up to it. We found we get much better results because the parent feels heard but not coddled, and the parent feels like as she moves forward there's somebody there helping her and standing by her. We only have the first 6 months of data, but when you look on the chart, the entry into foster care numbers are up here, and those START numbers are down here. It's just fabulous. So as you hear it grow, and it will sometime, please support it. We'll be looking for additional parent mentors as we go forward. We want parent mentors who are in recovery and have been clean for 2 years and had their children affected by the child welfare system. So keep START in mind as we go forward. So I've said all that I came to say. I have a lot of blah, blah, blah stuff here about all the good things we're doing, but you've heard enough of that over the years, I'm sure. Please have a great day and keep it up. We need you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gladys Carrión is in charge of the Office of Children and Family Services at the state, now working with her third governor in only 4 years. Impressive.
Wears them out.
Yeah. Commissioner Carrion.
So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And to see all of you and so many of you I work with. I wanted to say a special good morning to my colleagues, Commissioner Mattingly, and certainly Jim Purcell, who I saw earlier, and to thank David Tobis for their support and collaboration As we navigate a real changing environment in child welfare, and it's always wonderful to have partners that you can work with, because this work is really hard and one person alone can't do it. I've been a supporter of parent advocates throughout my entire career, and those of you that know me know that I've had a long and very varied career. I can't keep a job, but they've been all great jobs, and all of those jobs that I've had, for the most part, have always involved working with parents. So the saga for me in this, and why I think I'm here, is that I received a letter from David in February of 2009 asking OCFS to consider parent advocate contacts with families to count toward the casework contacts required by our regulations, right? And I thought it was a great idea immediately, right, David? And thought, oh, we could do this right away. Oh, sure, we could do this. And I thought that, no, we would be able to do this in a couple of months. That's such a great idea. John and everybody was behind it, and then I went to talk to counsel. I went to talk to the lawyers. And I don't know if any of you have had experience in changing regulations, in New York State. And if you do, you'll understand how challenging that process is. So with a lot of perseverance, commitment, and some nudging from David, these emails every couple of months, how are we doing? Where are we? We were able, after a very lengthy process involving both our internal legal, policy, and program divisions, and then after it leaves our agency, all of the other state agency oversights and approvals, we were able to actually change, be able to promulgate a regulation that actually, after 18 months, we were able, with lots of support from the advocate community and provider community, to amend our regulations to allow parent advocate visits with parents to count toward the 2 required casework contacts in a 6-month period. And that's huge. I gotta tell you, that's huge. It's huge in many ways. One, that we were able to do it, but 2, that it really is a form, not that you need it, but a validation of the work that you do and the importance of the work, and that it does make a difference, but it matters because we count it, we acknowledge it, we recognize it, and we allow agencies to be able to recognize your work, which is really important because you are the front line with the families. And so in August, we sent out an information letter to all the local districts and voluntary agencies, letting them know that the flexibility existed and encouraged them to use parent advocates as a means of engaging parents. The other thing that we did was really important was that we've built in the cost into our formula for reimbursement. So it serves as an incentive and support for agencies to know that they can charge the cost, the salaries of the parent advocates as part of their reimbursement formula, MSAR. So I think that the fact that we were able to do that is wonderful. Now, one of the things that we had to do in order to prepare for amending the regulations was, and it's required, we had to survey other states to see what it was that they did and what were their practices with parent advocates. And based on our research, it appears that New York State is the first state in the country that allows this kind of flexibility for parent advocates. So I don't know if John knows differently, but that's our research. So once again, New York is first in a really good way. We also found in other states that parent advocate positions are usually grant funded. We found that in one state, the staff, parent advocates, are paid with gift cards rather than salaries or cash for per diems. So imagine living on gift cards. So I'm really, really pleased that we've allowed funding for these positions to be built into the agency's contracts with localities. which provides for a lot more stability and flexibility for programs and for the staff. You know, and I really do think that this effort represents a really good example of a public-private sector partnership where we share mutual goals and values, and we come together to make something happen. We usually are, you know, arguing with each other, though I've experienced much less of that during my entire tenure, and it's been a very collaborative and collegial relationship, and you've helped me, and this is a really prime example of doing things together. Now, we learned from our research that parent advocates are working out really well, you know? So everybody wondered, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen, you know? Wow, you guys are really making a difference. You really do play a really vital role in getting that voice of parents really into our work and their perspective, and working with parents to help them to understand our very complex and many times convoluted systems that are so intimidating and so adversarial when they don't need to be. And you help us understand parents so much better and what they're going through. And my experience, and one of the roles that I played in my life is actually as a lawyer for biological, we used to call them natural parents, in family court. And it was really difficult. It was really difficult to get people to listen to parents, right? I remember as a lawyer, no offense, you weren't there, John, having now what is ACS, be really upset with my parents because they were angry about what was happening to them and that somehow they shouldn't be expressing that emotion. And I kept asking, well, if someone took your children away, wouldn't you be angry? Right? And so helping us understand that, and that's a role that parent advocates play, which is so critical to really helping us understand what it is that parents are feeling and how can we help them not only understand, but really understand what they can do to make a difference, right? That is so important. How can you draw on that inner strength that you have? And all of us who are parents understand that, right? I mean, all of us want what is the very, very best for our children. And you know, and that is what guides my work. What is it that I want for my children is what I should want for anybody else's child, right? So you humanize a system that can be intimidated and frightening, but you bring real life, you know, to the work. And one of the pet peeves I always have, even now with my staff, is all the jargon that we use to describe our work, and nobody else understands what the hell we're talking about, right? And so you are able to translate that and hopefully make us understand that we need to use English when we speak about the work that we do. But your work is not easy, and I think that no one expects it to be easy. It's hard work, and to be an effective parent advocate, you always have to draw on your own experiences and remember what it was like to be involved in a system, right? You can't ever forget that. So you have to draw on that, and you have to really help the parents understand that you were there, right? And that you were able to get your children back, that you were able to make those changes, that you were able to help now the system understand and make the changes the system needs to make in order to be responsive to parents. And that's a really important role. You know, and I think now you also understand the challenges that the system has and the limitations and the bureaucracy and all the rules, right? That even when you want to do the right thing, it becomes sometimes so difficult. But it's all of our job to call that out and to work really hard to change that, like we did with our regulations. And I think that probably my staff in the very beginning, I always think that everything is much more easier to do, and my staff was like, oh my God, there she goes again. And I think they were trying to see if they would block your emails, David. You know, that was a strategy. Can you block David's emails? But they came around really quickly and said, you know, this is a good idea. I think we can do this. And so together we did it. And I think that all of you agree that it's been worth it. The challenges that you faced has been worth it because you now make a difference in the system, right? You make a difference in the lives of children and families. And I think that that is the best part, certainly, of my job, and this is a very difficult job, that we make a difference every single day. And not too many people can say that they make a difference in the life of children and families. So all of you should be really pleased that you have come this far, that you have chosen to help others, that you continue to help, that you were able to see beyond your own personal pain, make this a really positive experience, right? And now in turn, you are responsible to others and making a difference in their lives. And so I am thrilled that you have joined me in this journey and in this work to make a difference in the life of children and families. So thank you for inviting me today. Thank you so much for the work that you do. And once again, thank you, David, so much.
Just want to say that there are a few people still coming in, and it's kind of hard to get to the middle seats, so if people can move in and make spaces closer to the aisle, that'd be great. And if I can make this microphone stay in place, I'll be happy. Our next speaker is Jim Purcell, who's the director of the Council of Family and Child Caring Agencies. I think at this time of year, Jim probably spends as much time on the road between here and Albany as in New York or Albany. Jim?
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Let me first say what a privilege it is to be here, and particularly to share this podium with Commissioners Carrion and Mattingly. And I have no idea where the term commissioner came from, but so let's substitute a different word for a moment. And now all my colleagues can just imagine for a moment what word I might substitute for commissioner in describing. But I'm going to substitute leader. Both of these two commissioners have had the fortune of serving during times of incredible financial pressures on everybody, but certainly on government. And as somebody who has to deal with those budgets and try to understand them and try to figure out the intricacies that go into making decisions, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out the state and the city budget. I'm actually 33 years old and my hair was brown. So for the record, we don't necessarily like every single decision and every budget in the city and state, and we raise our voices about those, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But without question, the decisions that Commissioners Carrion and Mattingly have made about where they had to cut their budgets have overwhelmingly been about protecting frontline work that we do. And every time there's a nip and a tuck, and Homemaker was threatened, and I'm thrilled at your news this morning, John, you know, there are these cuts, and we have to figure out how to live with them. But overwhelmingly, those cuts have been taken in places that do not affect frontline work in preventive services or foster care, and that's a credit to these two people who stand up in those fights internally that we never get to see and take those punches, and then have to appear before the state legislature and the city council and say, yes, I think these cuts are a terrific idea. So we are all in their debt. I always forget when things happen, but David reminded us that the last forum we did on this here was 2008. And in thinking back on that, it seems to me that in some ways that discussion was about why. Why do this? What are we talking about? Why would we do it? And I think that when you look at what's happened, I don't think we're talking about why anymore. We're not even really talking about how, although if how it relates to how we're going to pay for it, then that's still a very big issue, as both commissioners said. I think now we're talking about when. And that's frustratingly slow in some ways, but it's also, in the scheme of things, tremendous progress. We are not back here today saying, now, why did we do that 3 years ago? Why, should we really be doing this? Couldn't we think of something else? I think back to when I first came into child welfare, which was a very long time ago, and it was at the state level to work on a brand new law called the Child Welfare Reform Act. And I thought, oh good, I'm going to be there for a few years and we're going to reform this system. And I still pick up things today and it's like, hey, we got to reform this system. And I'm trying to figure out when we're going to get finished reforming it. Probably never. But that law did a lot of things. But the real important thing it did is it invented, funded for the first time, preventive services. And we all thought, oh my gosh, I mean, it used to be there was child protective services, there was an investigation, and then one of two things happened. Either children went into foster care or essentially nothing. So the choice was between let's do nothing after we investigate or let's put the kids in foster care. So preventive services was an enormous contribution to the lives of families in this state. And we all thought it was just going to take off. The state was going to fund 75% of whatever got spent. And then what happened, if you were to go back and we were to put up a big graph here today of the growth of preventive services, we would see that for about 3 years, nothing happened. Why? Well, the answer is Ronald Reagan got elected president and started cutting budgets left and right in Washington, and there was a recession, and so they started cutting budgets in the city and at the state, and nobody had money to start that. When we look at it today, we have a preventive service system in this state. Now, we don't like to say this too loudly, but that's unparalleled around the country. And the reason why we have fewer children in foster care today in New York City and in all across New York State than we ever have had in history is largely because we have alternatives to offer families when they get in trouble, and those are preventive services. So it started too slow, but then it took off. And I think that we're seeing that phenomenon today with parent advocates, because what I would suggest is that we're at that sort of tipping point, that point where it's why, and now at some point it becomes, well, that's just the way we all operate. And the impediment in this tipping point just flipping over where the expectation will be that there are parent advocates assigned to every caseload is money, and we got to get through this, and we got to figure it out, but we will. And so I think that tipping point idea is sort of where we're at today. One demonstration of that to me was that there's in the new city RFP, there's a new name for it. I cannot keep the new initials straight. I've stopped memorizing acronyms when I turned 60, so I'm just going to keep using the old ones. You know, it's still BCW, isn't it? I mean, and so, you know, it's funny, the people on the street who call it BCW, they weren't even born, their mothers weren't even born when it was BCW. So, so I still think it's therapeutic foster care and intensive preventive services. But the ACS redesigned that program in their RFP. This is on the preventive side, as I recall, and they put some money in for it, and they increased the funding, and they said, among other things, part of the requirement was that agencies should hire both a parent advocate and a licensed substance abuse professional, a CASAC, they're called. And then through all the changes that went on, they had to take 5% of the money out of that higher rate. And so then the question to the agencies was, well, what are we going to cut? You know, what aren't we going to fund? There's a little less money. What aren't we going to fund? And I have to say, I was a bit surprised when Diane Heggie, who works with me, told me that after meeting with the providers, they were virtually unanimous that they felt really bad, but they were going to have to not fund that substance abuse worker because they had to fund the parent advocate in all those programs. That's that tipping point. That's where people are saying, wait a minute, this is critical. I can't give this up. And I think that's the moment that we're at here in time. So we have to be outcome focused and have metrics on this. So I'm trying to figure out what the metrics are. So I think there's I think there's three. One, Commissioner Carrion, I think we'll know this is a success when you go down the hall to counsel's office. This goes for you too, Commissioner. Right before you get to counsel's office, there'll be an Office of Child and Family Advocacy, and they'll have to sign off on every regulation and every change we want to make. That'll be one metric. While I'm talking about the commissioners, Gladys, I really wish you hadn't told the story about the gift cards, because half of my board of directors is sitting here and they're going to convert my salary into gift cards now. The second metric will be when every family in preventive services and foster care is on a caseload of some caseworker, and on the team with that caseworker is a parent advocate, because that's just the way we do business, and so there has to be a parent advocate involved in every case. And finally, the commissioners both referred to this too, the day when I could imagine, you could imagine being a client in this system. The folder on the desk says, Purcell, James. My kid is in trouble here. I'm in trouble. My family's in trouble. And I am proud of the way that system operates for me and my kid, the way we all want it to be for all of our kids and all of our families. That'll be the real metric of when the system stops needing to be reformed and it's operating the way we all want it to do for our own families. Thank you for inviting me today.
Thanks, Jim. All right, would the members of the first panel come on up? And I'll introduce you as you take a seat. We're not gonna do long introductions, but I'm gonna have each of the people on the panel sort of talk about a little bit about what their work is. At this end, nearest to me is Diane Lesky from the Center of the Council of Family and Child Caring Agencies. Next to her is Sabra Jackson, who is coordinator of the Parent Advocate Network. Teresa Batchelor from CWOP, Child Welfare Organizing Project. And Sarah Wolf-Feldman from Chapin Hall, who worked on the evaluation of the Parent Advocate Initiative. So why don't we start with Diane, just very quickly sort of describe your role in the initiative and sort of 2 or 3 of the most important lessons you've had or you've learned in your work in terms of preparing for at the agency level, preparing for a Parent Advocate program.
Sure.
Diane.
Interestingly, when I first got into the field, just real quickly, there were no formal parent advocates, and 10 years ago we got a best practice grant, and one of the stipulations for that was to involve birth parents and parent advocates on the committee. And I was kind of thinking, why should we do this? We're in child welfare, we know the field, but we had parent advocates and birth parents come to that first meeting, and that was the clicking point. It was like, now I see why. It's the different perspective. It's, as Gladys said, the real life perspective. And I think it was at that point that Kafka and myself really realized the value of the parent advocates. So when we were asked to be part of this initiative, it was an absolute yes. Any time that we can, first of all, assist members in developing programs, we're there for them, but to especially work on the parent advocate side and integrating that into programs and agencies, we just felt like that was the critical thing for us to do.
Sabra, you want to
Yes.
describe what the network is all about and
Yes.
how it came about?
Well,
And
you
pull
know-
the mic close.
Okay,
We want
sure.
people to be able to hear it who are not in the room.
Certainly. The Parent Advocate Network was established in October 2009. I'm reading from our mission statement that we, the network, created. in the interest of supporting and organizing the growing numbers of parent advocates in the field of child welfare. A parent advocate is defined as a parent who has had personal experience with the public child welfare system, who has received comprehensive training as a peer advocate. We believe that all parents involved in the public child welfare system should have the opportunity to receive the support, guidance, and from someone with similar life experience, and that parents are the people that are most competent to identify the services needed for their families and community. So, the purpose of the Parent Advocate Network is to serve as a collective voice that increases the use of parent advocates in New York City in child welfare system. It improves the working conditions for and maximizes the effectiveness of parent advocates. So the network's objectives will be met by providing ongoing education and support and information for our membership, engaging in public education, advocacy, and policy analysis, collaborating with public and nonprofit agencies that share our goals, challenging negative perceptions about parents involved with the child welfare system, and serving as a model for parent advocates' job development and organizing that can be replicated in other jurisdictions.
Okay. Thank you. And Teresa, we're going to have a lot of time to talk about, or a little bit of time to talk about the training that CWOP does, but if you could describe sort of your role in terms of the initiative and the key role that CWOP played in that.
My role,
And into the mic.
hi, good morning, everyone. My role, I'm the assistant director at CWOP at the Child Welfare Organizing Project, and my role is to train parents who have personal experience with the child welfare system, because one of the things that when parents come in to CWOP, they have no detail, they don't have no knowledge of how the child welfare system it's run. And I'm going to talk from my own personal experience. When I came to CWOP, right now at the moment I'm running the 14 cycle about curriculum that started in 1999. This is a peer-led curriculum, and it should continue being a peer-led curriculum. I run it now with not only with SABRA, but with each graduate, every year a graduate graduates. What I do, I have them come back and help me run the class. It's not only run by me alone, but it's run with the whole graduates fund since 1999. We have 6 classes. It's a 6 months to 8 months. It runs at times. And one of the all the classes are communication skill, history of the child welfare system, family, navigating the family course system, leadership skill, community organizing, and job readiness. I could go on with, and job readiness, because 70% of our, 50% of our parents go out and get jobs at foster care agency, at legal service, and even at other agency as community reps also, because we have community reps here that sit in our audience at STAT.
Right. So Teresa, how do you decide who's qualified to be a parent advocate? How do you find people who want to do this training and can succeed at it?
How we do this is we go out and we do it through email, we do it through mail, and people come into our support group. It's done through our support group. So we identify parents either through support group, or parents come in and seeking for help. Mm-hmm. One of the things, they come in seeking for help, and we see how passionate they feel and how difficulty they're going through and through fighting the system itself. And by going through the difficulty, they come in. I'm just a little nervous to all this. We identify them through the support group itself, right, and through our recruitment process. We interview them, And we see that one of the things that they do say is that they don't want to see another parent go through what they've been through.
Right. So in a lot of ways, you could say that you're taking what some people who aren't experiencing child welfare see as a negative, and in
Turn it
fact
into a
seeing that
positive.
as the great strength.
Yes.
And then a big part of your curriculum is the communication skills and sort of the ability to advocate active listening as a piece of communications, right? Can you talk a little bit about sort of how you work with parents to use that sort of intensity and focus it in communications and in listening and the other pieces of being a professional
Right.
parent advocate?
In communication still, we talk about interacting with casework and communicating effectively with them.
Use the microphone.
And communicating effectively through the child welfare system. Both facilitators and the participant we use our own experience, talking about how we communicate and advocate for ourselves. We use role plays and our own personal examples in the role play. We talk about how to communicate when we want to advocate for change in the system. Then later on, as one of the classes that we combine together is community organizing class, where we talk about policy making and how to change the system and be more respectful to families and to the families. And we also talk about our political officials and who they are, who's our leadership skills, explore more power, a meaningful power. This is important to translate the information we learn from communication skills and the history into action.
Right. Thank you. Sarah,
Hi.
can you talk a bit about the evaluation you all did and sort of what the sort of most important elements of it are in terms of learning how to make this work in agencies?
Sure. And in my comments, I'll piggyback a little bit on what some others have said already. There were some nice segues that I was offered, but one of the big things that I
Can
think
people hear?
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Loud. Use the microphone.
I sound loud to me. I'm channeling my children. So collaboration from the earliest stages, I think, was one of the things that came through our evaluation. And there was a lot of collaboration in what we saw happening between the different parties involved in the initiative. But one of the findings, sort of in the end stages of our work, was that collaboration between the agencies and CWOP around the training that Teresa just described could have gone far in helping prepare the staff at the agencies really integrate the parent advocates into the work that they were doing. So for instance, there was some overlap between the classroom-based learning and the work in the field. If agencies had a little bit more hands-on knowledge of exactly what topics were being covered in the classroom, they can use that knowledge to help support the parent advocates and reinforce some of the learning happening. There was collaboration across the board. I think that's the take-home message. But it could have been extended even farther so that the partnership between the different agencies and organizations that were working to make the parent advocate initiative work, it could have been strengthened even further. So that was one thing that came through, was the importance of collaboration. Another thing that came through was the complexity of the role. And it's complex in ways that, anyone who's worked in child welfare knows that it's complex work. But there's an additional complexity that we found for the parent advocates. Part of it is that some of these folks have been out of the formal workforce for a long time. So that's a big thing to take on. Many of these people, and the ones that participated in our study were all women. Many of them were mothers. So they were dealing with what many mothers deal with when they go back to work, and they're managing children at home. Another thing that was difficult or complex in the role was how emotional the work can be. And again, anyone on the front lines in child welfare knows that it's emotional work. Commissioner Carrion mentioned that the parent advocates are they're authenticated in a very special way by the experience they've had with the child welfare system, and that authenticity can also bring up a vulnerability when they're doing the work. And one of the credits of the Parent Advocate Initiative is that it built in supports for parents from the get-go, anticipating that this could trigger memories or experiences or bring up emotional stress that is special for parent advocates, we better put some supports in place to make sure that we're there for them, that we can support them in their work, and take this attribute of them that's so special and make sure that it's protected and supported as they do their work. At the same time, even with those supports, that vulnerability is still there, so it's still a part of the experience, even with the supports that were in place. The third thing that we notice in terms of the complexity of the parent advocate role is that they are, on the one hand, peers to their clients, but on the other hand, they're still agents of an organization. And that could be a very difficult line to toe. There's a delicate balance that has to be, stricken. Again, the parent advocate team of collaborators were aware of this. At the same time, it doesn't change the reality on the ground. Mm-hmm. That could be a challenge in the work. So I think the collaboration, that it was there and that it worked and that there could have been even more of it, was one thing that we took away from our evaluation, and the multi-layered complexity of the role and how the supports have to be there for the parent advocates, and they were in this case, which is, I think, part of what made the initiative such a success. Mm-hmm. But they can never be taken for granted.
Right. Great. I got to say that if you look at the Chapin Hall evaluation and you look at the CWAP documents on the curriculum and the work that the network is doing, there's sort of this incredibly rich set of source material for creating the next phase of this. Just in looking through it, you can pull out all these hugely important elements that need to exist in these programs. So when it comes to support, there's essentially two levels. There's a level within the agencies themselves and the support from colleagues and supervisors, and then external supports from the network. I want to hear first a little bit from Diane about your experience working with the agencies to create and strengthen those internal supports in the agencies and to sort of get over the hump of making sure that the supervisors become more like coaches and less like, client relationships with a caseworker.
Sure. What we found was that the agencies needed to come together on the parent advocates and supervisors and just exchange ideas about how agencies are using parent advocates, their various roles, which the very first meeting was a dynamic exchange of ideas. No agency there's not a set thing that all agencies do. Some agencies are using their parent advocates to meet and greet, some at intake. Supervisors also weren't aware at that first meeting of the training that parent advocates went through at CWAP, and I think it was really helpful for them to hear exactly what the parent advocates were trained on, because again, it helped them incorporate these positions better. And it was a challenge. Supervisors spoke of the challenge within agencies of making sure that all staff saw the value of the parent advocates, and that they will lead to better and hopefully quicker enhancement and engagement of the family, which at the end of the day is the goal.
So in these meetings with the agency staff, did you come away with a sense of what they learned in terms of how to incorporate them into the day-to-day work in the most effective way?
Yeah, our first meeting was with parent advocates and supervisors, and again, that was kind of just general information sharing about how agencies were using various parent advocate roles. The second meeting was just supervisors, and they really focused on what it means to be successful in integrating these workers. One agency shared recently that even just picking the supervisor is a key role. They have a former client that's their parent advocate, and they realize that they shouldn't have the supervisor of that role from the foster care department. They picked the supervisor of the family team conferencing, because that was more in the spirit of kind of lifting up the client, and they saw that the parent advocate too, it's about lifting up and elevating the communication. So different strategies on how to deal with integrating the role and with getting buy-in from staff, that staff don't see parent advocates as coming in to align with the parent and not necessarily work with the agency. And through the education that was really, really stressed many times in the meetings, it was so important that the agencies really informed their workers that truly the parent advocates enhance. There's only good that comes out of that. And again, to pick up on what Sarah said, supervisors also talked about the importance of allowing time for the parent advocate to kind of decompress after some family meetings. There's some issues of countertransference and the importance of, in good supervision, allowing a safe place for the parent advocate to relate to, but yet not caretaking like in the client-worker role. Still talking about boundaries and the best way to go forward.
You and Saber could both answer this, but to what degree was it clear that there were at times conflicts that sort of came out of a more traditional approach to the work, sort of conflicts that result between caseworkers and parent advocates that weren't healthy necessarily, and how did agencies, or how have agencies dealt with that?
Yeah, some of my network members would come.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Some of the network members would come and share with the network that there was conflict because they were once being serviced by that agency. And so the network, as in the mission statement, is to support. So we would hear the concern and appropriately help that particular advocate navigate. If it might be, along with my colleague Teresa Baxter with the training, come together with the agency, discuss the concerns, and hopefully come to a successful resolution, which I pretty much believe that we have.
Right. So with the external support structure that you can provide through the network, talk a little bit about how often you get together with people, what kind of resources you have for people.
Well, I think in the first year, the first general membership meeting, I remember one of my peers saying, we don't want this to just be a club. We are a professional network that must be structured. So in order to do that, within the first year, the network put together its bylaws. And so within the bylaws, there's an executive committee. So our executive committee consists of Sandra Killett, who is a parent advocate from the Children's Village, and she is a board member of CWOP. We have Shelley Shaw, who is a parent advocate from the Office of Advocacy, who is also the vice chair. We have Teresa Batchelor, who is CWOP's Assistant Director, East Harlem site, and she is the treasurer. We have our two secretaries, corresponding and recording, Bernadette Blunt, who is a parent advocate from CWOP and a board member for the Fund for Social Change. And we have Bevan J. Kelly, who is a parent advocate from CWOP and a board member for CWOP. So monthly, the second Friday of every month, in the bylaws, we meet the second Friday of every month from 11 to 1. That is our general membership meeting. In that membership meeting is business. Is business. So what are we talking about? We're talking about policy. We're talking about upcoming statutes that have been a part of child welfare. Any new news that is happening on the policy or education front. And so in the bylaws, the general membership decided that the last Friday of every month from 6 to 8 is our support group meeting. What is the support group? The support group is not a business meeting. It is a place because, as everyone said, the work that we do is challenging. So we need to come to a place where we can come and just share our experiences and how that affects us personally. So with that being said, that is one of the structures. Right. We have the mission statement. Yep. And I'm not going to go any further.
So one quick question. You had told me a little bit about cases where parent advocates at an agency had cases that kind of stumped them or challenged them, and they were able to get access through your network to some good answers and good resources. You want to give an example?
Sure. One of the cases that stands out in my mind was one of my network members called the network and said, "Say, got a parent who is not a part of my agency who became desperate. She didn't know where to go. In her journey, she met this mom. This mom was told by her agency, because mom had some cognitive challenges, go ahead and just surrender your rights, and we'll let you see the child after everything is over." So mom knew something wasn't right. So that my peer called and said, all right, we need the network. We need the network to support her in that. So what we did was we got someone to work directly with her, with Mom. Immediately, the network has relationships with attorneys. So we had a relationship with the attorney. So we immediately called the attorney and said, did you know Mom was told blah, 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 blah. And Mom felt supported. Mom now continues to engage with CWOP's support group. And so the network was able to support her and help her overturn what was told her, what was an injustice.
So there's sort of great value in reaching critical mass or nearing critical mass and having so many parent advocates out there connected in this network. So we have about 10 minutes for questions for this group of panelists. If you have questions, please raise your hand, and a couple of people from the center will come around with microphones. So over here, I mean, we're especially interested in hearing questions from people who are thinking about how to make this work more effectively in their agencies. There's a hand up over here, Anna.
I don't really need a microphone.
Yeah, you do, because we need to make sure that people who are watching from outside can hear it.
Hi.
And please identify yourself.
I'm Wendy from New York Foundling, and I just wanted to, it's more of a comment that Teresa maybe can fill in, because when New York Foundling started with the Parent Advocate Initiative, we hired our parent advocates full-time right away. And I think Teresa could, the curriculum was more than just the 6 classes, because Teresa and I were on the phone periodically negotiating, because our parent advocates had to go to certain community partnerships based on their work as full-time employees, but yet there was a whole calendar, and every month I would get the calendar, call up and say, okay, she has time, she can do that, but there was so many opportunities for the parent advocates in training to experience besides the once a month, and it was curriculum, the workshops. It was very helpful, and I think maybe if people hear that it's more than just once a month, they'll realize how intense the training is. And also for Diane, if you could restart that supervisors group, we would love it.
Yeah, we were, our goal hopefully for 2011 is to do quarterly meetings of that group. We've heard across the board that it's helpful, and we hope that we will have someone from CWOP or SABRA specifically to join the group as well, to enhance communications, what supervisors are seeing, and then it will parlay into, maybe additional things for parent advocates to know in their trainings to look at ongoing challenges. So that's definitely a priority for us.
Yeah. Teresa, do you want to talk a little bit? I mean, there's the field experience element of this too.
Yes, it's based, like she said, it's very intense. It's very intense. The parents go basically on a monthly calendar. I meet with them every Wednesday in the morning from 10. I go over the calendar, and there's activities and events that they have to do for that they will be doing for the week. They go to public forums. They go to give testimonies. They go to parents' rights trainings. We part of the community partnership program. We attend meetings attend every meeting and community partnership program. They also, from that, we also meet, myself have gone on and spoken with the commissioner. They would sit at the parent advisory work group. They attend a writing class with Nora that meets every Friday. There's a bunch of activities and events. There's support group. We meet at support group after the calendar reading. We have support group. This is where parents themselves, where the parents come in, because I have parents that came from support group. Today is Wednesday. We're supposed to be doing support group, and I'm sitting here. And we had to tell the parents to come, and some of our parents are here.
All right.
And where they give the parents, not only are they in training with me, but they also are in training in how to get support and give other parents the support that is needed. Because when you're coming in when you're coming into this training, you're still facing, the outlook of ACS is still, oh, they didn't do anything for me, and they still, and they're viewing them as the bad guy, and we need to work as a partner together, you know. So one of the things, this is all the activities and event that it's within the whole calendar.
Right.
On a weekly basis.
And Teresa, there's also this sort of core leadership piece of it, which, you know, as you've told me, is bringing together the experiences of people from across from across your membership, from their very different types of experiences with different systems within government, and helping to understand how those systems work and the roles that parents can play in trying to change them, right? I mean, you want to talk a little bit about that leadership component?
Leadership into changing the system within a whole for the parents being.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about how some of the parents are coming from having been in homeless shelters or having to advocate within the homeless system. Some have been in, those different elements.
Right. Our parents come in, like Andrew said, we just started our curriculum in January, and we interview parents that come in from that had just been and going through the shelter system. We interview parents that go into TPR. There's parents that are going through the criminal justice system. We have parents that also do board education system. So we all sit as a whole, combine. We all together giving each other the feedback and information and the support from another. We're learning from each other. That's one thing we're doing. And during support group itself, during support group, and during also through the whole 6 months training classes. We're supporting one another through the changes, giving each other the resource and the information to one another, because some of us don't know too much of. Some of the parents are not aware of what the Board of Education is expecting of them. Some of them are going through visiting, and they don't know what to expect of visiting. Some parents, I'm not aware. I have a parent that's feeling she's worthless of no one. That no one. She lost her children, and she feels like she all she wants is for her kids to get to know her. And one of the things that we're there to give her the support. She came in not knowing about us, and just came in just to come in, and she wound up being in the curriculum. I told her, you know what, you should join us and be in our curriculum. Being our curriculum might bring, I'm not gonna say we could overturn the TPR, but it might be a little help for you to, a little knowledge for you to go and give it to someone else that's going through the same situation that you've been going through.
Right. Other questions in the back?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maxine King, and I'm a parent leader in training. I'm a part of the curriculum at CWOP, and I think that is a very important curriculum. However, I'm really concerned that parents who are actually going through ACS issues at this moment, not everybody is aware of a CWOP or a parent advocacy or a parent advocate. When folks are in these organizations and these agencies, ACS is seen as the enemy, and a parent is alone. You know, so I'm just wondering, is there any way that these agencies can impart the information for all the parents, not just some parents who's lucky to hear it through the grapevines, that there are parent advocates available to help, that all parents are notified that there are parent advocates that can offer help. That's one thing. Another thing is, there are 7 communities in the city that are affected by ACS. Children are coming out of 7 main communities in the city. However, in these 7 communities, CWOP is not in these communities, and parent advocates are not in the communities. Commissioner Mattingly, you're here? Carrion, you're here. I just would like to ask and advocate for a bigger budget so that we can train more parent advocates.
I want to bring it back to them if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, so Teresa and Saber, and Diane also, can you talk a little bit about the advocacy side of this and getting, the role that you all play in trying to push this to a larger scale?
Well, from the perspective of bringing together our agencies, especially the supervisors, we do hope to share more and get the word out more about the services of parent advocates. And we're also trying to acknowledge what agencies have to do to successfully integrate these roles. It really has to start from the top down. It has to start from the executive director and filter through the agency to realize the importance of this role. So on our behalf, we are trying to communicate that, and we'll continue to do that as we convene these quarterly meetings of supervisors and figure out what the best way is to work in conjunction with CWOP and get word to the clients that we all serve about the value of the parent advocates.
On the grassroots level, the network.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. On the grassroots level, as I said, the second Friday of every month is the general membership meeting. So April's meeting is at Forestdale. And what we do is we have our network meetings and we ask you to invite us to your house. Two, one, to expose the network to agencies that they have often collaborated with on the telephone but have never seen it, and vice versa, expose the network citywide. The network was represented on many different levels. I sit on the Court Improvement Project in Albany with Betsy and Frank Wood. I sit on the New York County Law Association Subcommittee on Family Court. I sit on the Commissioner's Parent Advisory Work Group. So the network and the voice of the parent advocate is not only on the city level, but it's on the state level also.
Right. Okay. Over here, if you can. Where's the microphone? We just have time for about two more. Oh, I'm sorry. She has.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Bronson. I do advocacy work for parents at the Bronx Defenders. And hi. I think part of why support groups for parents, like at CWOP, are so helpful is that it provides a safe space for parents to be able to talk about their issues and their issues with going through the system. And I'm curious about how having a parent advocate as part of a foster care agency, how can that advocate create that same kind of safe space where the advocate can be someone that the parent can confide in, but also be part of the agency and be required to fulfill their duties as a reporter and as a member of the foster care agency?
Great question.
I'm sorry?
And I think that's kind of, two or threefold across the board. One is on the supervisory level, creating that space for the parent advocate, but then also via the trainings that they receive and through the support network.
Coming to support group, one of the parents that are in the agency, what they do is come back to our support group and sit in our support group and bring the clients. They come and serve. Shanice is always in our support group. All the time she sends all her parents, and basically most of the parents send their parents to our support group. And they not only send them alone, but they come with their parents and make it and let it be known that that our support group is a safe space, that they're there to get the support, the knowledge, and the feedback from parents. Sometimes they don't want to hear the truth, but we try to get them at the right level at that moment of time. And they feel, a lot of people have said, I wish we had a support group. Where were your guys when I needed you in the beginning? And they up to the last wits of trying to get their children back.
Saber.
And from the network level, there is, as I
Microphone.
said in the mission statement, there is a preconception about parent advocates. We are clear about what safety and risk are. We are clear about how families need to be safe. We are clear about giving some straight talk, and as we say, sometimes you're gonna hear some stuff you ain't gonna wanna hear. But it will be the thing that is necessary to keep your family safe and to bring them back together. So that preconception, we want to get rid of it, because we
Right.
do understand it.
Right. This has to be really short because we have to move.
Hello,
There's a whole
everyone.
bunch
Good
of
morning. It's nice to meet you, John Mattingly. My name is Michael Young. I'm a parent that have 2 boys in foster care. And I thank Carmen for inviting me. I call CWOP. I was looking in the RISE book, and I'm just want to touch bases on, I believe there's a lot of fathers out there that's really concerned to get their children back in their lives, and I'm one of them. I'm fighting to get custody of my son, Daniel Young, and he's in St. Dominic, New York. My son Maurice is with Children's Aid Society, and I'm dealing with Senior Society also. I just got a home visit yesterday at my home, and the thing is, it's not too many special needs parenting classes out there, because my son is ADHD, and I have a son who's blind with glaucoma and cataract. He's born with glaucoma and cataract. And I was sent to programs to get help, but I had to get parenting certificate, but they wanted me to get special needs parenting certificate, and it's kind of hard. It's not, in a lot of programs, they don't have special needs parenting, and it took me a while. My kid's been in foster care for 7 years. March 19th will be 7 years, and this is the reason why it took me so long to get it, because I could not find special needs parenting. And I think in a lot of these drug treatment programs, they need to get more special needs parenting. I'm in a drug treatment program called Coney Island Treatment Program at 2201 Neptune Avenue in Brooklyn, and it really helped me. I'm in recovery, you know, and June 28th is my last day. I have a year.
That's right.
And I thank God, you know, that I changed my life around, you know. I raised 3 boys by myself. My oldest son, I raised him since he was 13 years old until he was 21. And through death, I had a son that passed away in 2004, 4 months old, and I relapsed. I had 6.5 years clean, and I relapsed behind it. I used to try to keep in touch with Miss Diane Cruikshank. If anybody know Diane Cruikshank, I always try to call her to try to get preventive services when I had my children, and it was kind of hard getting services. And I just think that a lot of fathers need more help and support and counseling, you know, like myself.
Do you want to tie this into? I hate to interrupt because this is great,
Right,
but can you tie this into like a question?
I just thank Carmen for inviting me, and
Yep.
CWOP, and I'm going to join the program and try to get help. And I thank y'all for letting me
All right. So, you want to comment? Please. You know, there's not enough time for everybody. All right, can you guys say something about fathers and the sort of strategies for getting more fathers involved in advocacy, parent advocacy?
Well, the network has that.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry, the network has fathers.
We have fathers and our support group.
Are there?
I could, Albert, right
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
He's one of our fathers, and we graduated from our curriculum.
All right.
Plenty of fathers.
So we have to. There will be time in each of the next phases for Q&A. So hold on to your questions. We have to go to the next panel now.